Good morning, children. Today we'll start with the new lesson of main course book, that is lesson number 6. Heidi learns to read. Now, Heidi, today we'll just read the story as a whole. I will just become a storyteller and I want you all to read it very carefully at least 2 times. So before I go with the reading session of the whole story, let me tell you the base of it. Now, Heidi is a novel, a book, storybook written by writer Johanna Spire, a Swiss writer. Swiss writer means referring to Switzerland, right? Now, if you Google by writing Heidi, you will be getting a free PDF download, a free downloadable PDF if you would like to go through the reading of the novel, the whole novel. Now, this story, Heidi Learns to Read, is just an extract. Extract means it's not the whole part of novel. It's not the whole storybook. It's just a simple little extract, part of the story as a lesson in your book. Okay, so in this novel Heidi, there are 6 to 7 characters, and the novel story begins with Aunt Dete, with whom this little girl Heidi is living, because Heidi is an orphan. She doesn't have parents, right? So she lives with Aunt Dete, and Aunt Dete finds a new job, and so she leaves this little girl with her grandfather in the Alps in the Switzerland, in the mountainous area, right? Earlier it was little bit of maladjustments with grandfather, but soon this little girl, the little 8-year-old Swiss orphan, learns or grows to love the mountains, the flowers and the animals, right? Matlab, this little girl Heidi now is happy with living with grandfather, right? Earlier she was with Aunt Dete. Okay, here, living with grandfather, moving on to the mountains, loving the pine trees, she also makes friends with Peter. Peter is a shepherd boy, right? Who herds and takes the goats and sheep for grazing up to the mountains, right? Now, just after, while she was living on the mountains with grandfather, after 3 years of time, now this Aunt Dete reappears. Dobara aa jati hai. Why she is? Now she takes Heidi to Frankfurt. Frankfurt, why is she taking it to Frankfurt? Because she has found a new job for her niece Heidi. क्या job है? For being a companion to a rich girl, Clara. Clara was a cripple. She was not able to walk properly. So, but she's very rich, had some caretakers. So, but because the rich parents must be wanting the companionship, the friendship of a little girl, so Heidi got a job, right? So Heidi here learns to love Clara, but very often she's unhappy because of the distress caused by a rotten mare. Rotten mare is a character who is the caretaker of Clara, right? So she, like the Heidi there at Frankfurt, is not very much happy, right? And she misses the mountains and the pine trees. Here, during the story, like she also meets Clara's grandmother. And grandmother is such a kind character that she teaches Heidi to love God, and she teaches Heidi to read books. And this is how the girl becomes more like able to read and interested in books and everything, and becomes more like soar a high in her spirits, right? So in this extract means in the part of story which is written in your lesson, we are going to read that how Clara's grandmother begins to understand how much Hedy longs to go back to mountains and the bright sunshine. And during her stay at Frankfurt, how she learns to read. So let's give a plain reading, no explanation. I repeat, I want you all to read at least 2 or 3 times so that when we start skimming the story for the vocabulary and other things, you're able to understand what I explain. ठीक है? So सबने कम से कम 2-3 बार इसको खुद से रीडिंग करनी है स्टोरी को, जैसे एक स्टोरी बुक पढ़ते हैं. Okay, let's begin with the reading. The following day after dinner, Clara's grandmother, Frau Sisman, said to Fräulein Rottenmeier, the housekeeper, "Go and bring Hedy to my room. I have some nice books with me that I would like to give her." "But that's just it," replied Fräulein Rottenmeier, throwing up her hands in despair. "Of what use are books to her? She doesn't even know the alphabet yet. It is quite impossible to teach her anything. The tutor will tell you himself. If he didn't have the patience of a saint, he would have given up trying to teach her long ago." "Well, that is strange. The child doesn't strike me as being stupid," said Frau Sussman shortly. "Now go and fetch her. She can look at the pictures for the time being." Fräulein Rottenmeier was about to say more, but Frau Sussman had turned away and gone quickly towards her room. She was very surprised at the Fräulein Rottenmeier's remarks and was determined to find out more about the whole matter. Perhaps the tutor would help, although his conversations were so roundabout and lengthy that she felt that it might be difficult to get to the root of the problem. Hedy was greatly delighted with the beautiful colored pictures in the books which grandmother had brought. Suddenly she cried aloud as she turned a page, and when the old lady looked at the child, she saw that the tears were streaming down her cheeks. She looked at once at the picture. It depicted a beautiful green pasture with all sorts of animals grazing. In the midst, a shepherd leaned upon his stick and looked happily at his flock. Everything was bathed in golden light, for the sun was setting on the horizon. Grandmother took Hedy's hand gently. "Don't cry, dear child, don't cry. The picture has reminded you of something, perhaps. But look, there is a beautiful story about it, and I'm going to tell you about it tonight. There are many beautiful stories in this book which you can read over and over again. Come now, we must have a chat. So dry your tears and stand in front of me so that I can look at you. That's right. Now we are happy again." Hedy tried very hard to stop sobbing, and when at last she succeeded, grandmother said, "Now I want you to tell me something, child. How are you getting on with your lessons? Do you like them? Are you doing well?" "Oh no," replied Hedy, sighing. "But I knew it would be impossible." "What is impossible, Hedy? What do you mean?" "To learn to read, it is so difficult." "You don't say so. And who told you this?" "Peter did. And he knows, for he has tried but can't learn. It's too difficult." "What a boy Peter must be then. But listen to me, Hedy. We must never believe what the Peters say, but try for ourselves. I'm sure you have never paid enough attention to your lesson or looked properly at the letters." "It's of no use," said Hedy with a great sigh of resignation. Now, Heidi, listen to what I have to say. You have not been able to read because you believed what Peter said. Now you must believe what I say. When I tell you that you can learn to read like many other children who are like you and not like Peter. First, you must know what happens when you are able to read. Do you see the shepherd on the beautiful green pasture? Showing the picture in the book, right? Do you see the shepherd on the beautiful green pasture? Well, as soon as you can read, you shall have the book for your very own, and then you will know the whole story just as if someone were to tell it to you. What the shepherd did, his sheep and goats, and the wonderful things that happened to him. Wouldn't you like to know all that, Heidi? Now grandmother is making interest in reading. Heidi had been listening with keen attention and now exclaimed with sparkling eyes, "Oh, if only I could read already!" "You will learn in no time. I can see that, Heidi. But now we must go to Clara. Come, we will take these books with us." Grandmother took Heidi's hand and they went together into the study. From the day Heidi had tried to go home and Fräulein Rettermeier had scolded her for being so wicked and ungrateful, a change had come over the child. Now she knew that she could not go home whenever she liked, but that she had to stay in Frankfurt for a long time, maybe forever. There was nobody to whom she could say how homesick she was, for she could not face giving the grandmother, who was so kind to her, cause to be angry as Fräulein Rottenmeier had been. She could no longer eat and grew thin. She lay awake for long hours thinking of her life in the mountain. When at last she fell asleep, she dreamt of the red summits and the sunshine and the flowers. When she awoke in the morning, she wanted to run happily in the sun, but she soon realized that she was in a big bed in Frankfurt. Now, still, she is missing mountains and develops some sleeping trouble because she's missing so much. And Rottenmeier, the housekeeper, was not much comforting. Now, Heidi's unhappiness did not escape Heidi's unhappiness did not escape grandmother's notice. One day, she asked her what the matter was. Heidi was afraid to tell her truth. She did not want the kind grandmother to think she was an ungrateful child. So she said, "Please, I cannot tell you." "Could you tell Clara then?" "Oh no, I cannot tell anyone," said Heidi pitifully. "Then, little one, let me tell you what to do. When we are in difficulty and cannot speak about it to anybody, we must pray to God for help. That will lessen our pain." A sudden look of joy came to Heidi's eyes. "May I tell him everything?" "Yes, Heidi, everything." It was about a week after this that the tutor met the grandmother and gave the glad news that Heidi had at last learned to read. He said it looked as though Heidi had learned to read overnight, unlike most beginners. "Life is full of miracles." Frau Sisman smiled. "Now we must be glad the child has made a good beginning and hope for her future progress." The grandmother went down to the study to make sure of the good news. There, sure was Heidi sitting beside Clara and reading aloud to her, evidently very much surprised herself and growing more and more delighted with the new world that was now open to her as the black letters grew alive and turned into men and things and exciting stories. See, when you learn to read, you're open to the world of fantasies and imagination and people and so many things. Same now, Heidi's word has grown up. The same evening at dinner table, Heidi found the large book with the beautiful pictures by her plate. When she looked questioningly at grandmother, the old lady nodded kindly to her and said, "Yes, it is yours now. Mine, to keep always, even when I go home?" asked Heidi, flushed with happiness. She was so happy to get her own book now. "Yes, of course, forever," grandmother assured her. "Tomorrow we will start to read it." Before she went to bed, Heidi looked at her book, and from that day on, her greatest pleasure was to read over and over again the stories which belong to beautiful pictures. So that's the end of the lesson story. The Extract of Heidi, the beautiful novel by Johanna Spyre. Now I want my all dear children to read it over and over again. जैसे हेडी ने over and over again पढ़ना शुरू कर दिया ना, I want you to read it over and over again, the same story, so that when we start discussing the story, you know what explanations and I'm giving, and you could contribute to the discussions. Have a nice day.